she was like, and perhaps is she throwing signals? Is she trolling him? Is she, trapped in the White House unhappy? And it kind of made for more sympathy among Democrats and women. Now, we've seen in this poll today that those are the exact people who have dropped off significantly. Melania Trump in recent weeks has spoken more about her alliance with the president.
For a long time, Melania Trump stayed quiet. She wasn't like other political wives who spoke often or shared their thoughts. She remained in the background, calm, silent, and always a little mysterious. People noticed her because of how little she said. Her silence became her power. But now, something has changed. At 55, Melania has finally spoken, and the way she did it shocked everyone. It wasn't a long speech. It wasn't loud or angry. It was just one short message.
Our hometown, where architectural symbols of strength, courage, and unity create a canvas for the world's undisputed capital of industry.
Every carefully written, cold, and calm. But the moment it came out, people felt the ground shift beneath them. It didn't scream for attention, it whispered, and somehow, that whisper was louder than a shout. What did it mean? Was she trying to warn someone? Was it a quiet way of saying she was upset? Or was it something deeper, something planned from the start? Her message didn't have many words, but it said so much. The way she wrote it, the tone, the timing, it all seemed to hint at something bigger. Some people felt a sense of distance in her words, like she was pulling away from something or someone. Others thought they could feel anger, hidden under her calm. And then just like that, she disappeared. No follow-up, no interviews. No one saw her out in public, nothing more. That silence feels even louder now. People aren't just wondering what she said anymore. They're wondering why she said it. What made her speak up after all this time? Was she sending a message to her husband, to the public, or maybe even to the people closest to her? Whatever it was, one thing is clear. Melania doesn't speak often, but when she does, the world listens. The power of her silence. Melania Trump isn't like most first ladies. From the very beginning, she stood out not because of how much she said, but because of how little she said. Most first ladies are active. They give speeches, start programs, visit schools, and talk to the public. They share their ideas, show their support, and make their voices heard. But Melania was different. She stayed quiet. She stayed calm. She stayed far away from the noise. Yes, she went to big events. Yes, she wore elegant clothes and walked beside her husband. But even in front of the cameras, she rarely said a word. And when she did, it was short, simple, and carefully chosen. That silence, it wasn't just soft, it was loud in its strange way. The more she stayed quiet, the more people paid attention. Why wasn't she speaking? Was she choosing to be private? Or was she being kept away from the spotlight? Was it a personal choice or something deeper? Every time Donald Trump made headlines, whether for something serious or something silly, people turned to look at Melania. What would she say? How would she react? But she rarely reacted. Her face stayed blank, her body remained still, her eyes showed no emotion, and that stillness, it said so much. Some moments stood out, like the time Donald tried to hold her hand in front of the cameras and she lightly pulled away. It happened quickly, but the whole world noticed. That small move became big news. Because even without words, it felt like Melania was saying something. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she was angry. Maybe she didn't want to pretend anymore. In that moment, it was clear. Her silence wasn't empty. It was full of messages, hidden messages, quiet messages. She had found a new kind of voice, a voice made of gestures, looks, and silence. And because she rarely spoke, people began to study her like a riddle. Every time she appeared in public, viewers watched closely. Was she smiling? Was she frowning? Was she standing close to Donald or far away? She became a mystery, A quiet figure who said nothing, but somehow made people feel everything. And that's what made her recent message so powerful. It came after years of silence, after years of holding back. When someone who seldom speaks finally decides to break that silence, it matters. A lot. People listen more closely. Because silence, once broken, doesn't just whisper, it echoes. Melania didn't need to shout. She didn't need a long statement. She just needed a few calm, icy words. And those words spoke louder than any speech. They shook people, surprised them, left them wondering, what does this mean? Why now? What's she saying underneath those polished words? The truth is, silence builds pressure. It builds curiosity. It creates space for questions. And when that silence finally breaks, it doesn't fade into the background. It explodes. That's what Melania's silence has always done. It pulls you in, makes you guess, leaves you unsure but never bored. And now, by finally speaking, she has flipped the spotlight right back onto herself. Because sometimes, the quietest voices carry the heaviest weight. And Melania Trump, she's just proven that being silent doesn't mean being weak. It means being watchful. And when she finally speaks, the world can't help but listen. The message that shook everyone. It happened without any cameras flashing, no press standing by, no crowd waiting to clap or cheer, just a message, short, cold, unexpected. Melania Trump, who had been silent for so long, suddenly broke that silence. Not with a speech, not with a TV interview, just a few typed words in a single post. But those few words carried a storm inside them. They weren't loud, they didn't sound angry, but they were sharp, careful, chilling. She didn't name anyone, not her husband, not anyone else in the family. She didn't blame, she didn't beg, she didn't even sound like she was trying to explain anything. And that's exactly what made it so powerful. Her tone felt cold, like ice that had been sitting quietly for years, finally starting to crack. Every word was perfectly chosen, clean, smooth, but behind that smoothness, there was a cold distance. Like she wasn't just pulling away from someone, she was pulling away from everything. People immediately started guessing what it meant. Was it about Donald Trump? Had something gone wrong between them? Was she tired of the drama surrounding his legal troubles, the press, the rallies? Or maybe it wasn't about him at all. Some people believed the message was aimed at the entire Trump world family, politics, pressure, and the fake smiles. A quiet way of saying, I'm done. Whatever it was, one thing was clear, it didn't sound good. There was no peace offering in her words. No, let's stay strong. No, we'll get through this together. Nothing like that. Instead, it felt like she was drawing a line, setting a boundary, maybe even closing a door. Some called it a warning, others thought it sounded like a quiet goodbye. People began reading between the lines, trying to find the hidden meaning. Some thought she was hinting at secrets the public doesn't know yet. Secrets that could shake everything. Still, Melania didn't explain herself. She didn't say, this is what I meant. She didn't post again. She didn't go on TV to soften the message. There was no apology, no correction, no update. Just silence. And somehow, that silence spoke louder than the message itself. It was like she had dropped a single match and then walked away while the fire caught on its own. The internet exploded. People on social media started making theories. Videos popped up. Tweets went viral. News anchors discussed it with a serious face. Some called it brave. Others called it cold. Fans wanted answers. Critics wanted more proof. But no one got anything. Because Melania, she stayed quiet. And that made people even more nervous. When someone usually quiet says something huge and then disappears, that's when people start to panic. What is she hiding? What is she planning? What does she know that we don't? Everyone had questions, but no one had answers. Except maybe Melania herself. And she wasn't talking. That silence became heavier with each passing day. It wasn't just a pause. It was a message on its own. A message that something was broken or about to break. And in the end, that's what made her words so unforgettable. Not because of how loud they were, but because of how quiet everything became after she said them. Melania Trump didn't need to shout. She just whispered, and the whole world heard it. Trouble behind closed doors. Let's be honest, Melania and Donald Trump never seemed like the perfect couple. Yes, they smiled for the cameras. Yes, they walked side by side at fancy events, waved at crowds, and posed for pictures. But even then, something always felt off. There was a strange distance between them, a quiet space that felt cold, even when they stood close. But one point, sometimes, Melania looked tired. Not just physically, but emotionally drained. You could see it in her eyes, that kind of weariness that makeup can't hide. Other times, she seemed completely disconnected, like she was there, but not present. And then there were those unforgettable moments when she simply walked away. No eye contact, no kind words, just cold silence and firm steps in the opposite direction. The media noticed, the public noticed, and over the years, the rumors started building. Some said she was trapped in a marriage she no longer wanted. Others believed she was just done pretending everything was okay. A few sources even claimed she had been planning her exit for a long time. She was just waiting for the right time to leave. And now, after her sudden and cold message, all of those whispers feel a little more real. Melania didn't say, "I'm done," but she also didn't say, "I'm staying." Her words fell somewhere in between calm, distant, and strangely final. People close to her have started speaking out. Insiders say she's been stepping back for months now. No big announcements, just slow, quiet distancing. She's not showing up at public events like she used to. She skips campaign speeches, avoids interviews, and hasn't been seen much at major political gatherings. Even during Trump's rally events, where his family usually stands proudly behind him, Melania is often missing. That says a lot. Some sources say she's choosing to spend more time with her son, Barron.
I'm sure he has already so many toys, but maybe what's his favorite toy?
Let's play drums.
You want to have drums? What you will have for a birthday?
ET's flashing back to a nearly 3-year-old Barron Trump.
She's focusing on his future, his peace, and his schooling. And at the same time, she's spending less time at Trump-owned properties, less time around the political noise, less time beside her husband. If all of this is true, it's more than just a wife taking a break. It's a sign, because in relationships, especially public ones, when a partner begins to step away like this, it often means something is breaking behind closed doors. It's not about one big fight or one single moment. It's about the slow pullback, the quiet changes, the missing smiles, the skipped events. The emotional wall grows taller every day, and maybe that wall is already too high to climb. Some believe Melania has already made up her mind. She just hasn't said the final words yet. Others think she's protecting herself and her son from more drama. Whatever the reason, one thing is clear: something's not right. And for a couple that once stood together in front of the entire world, that kind of distance speaks louder than any statement. Melania may still be in the same house. She may still wear the name Trump, but in so many ways, emotionally, mentally, and maybe even spiritually, she seems to have already walked away. And when someone quietly leaves the room, the silence they leave behind tells the whole story. What this means for Donald Trump. This moment isn't just about Melania Trump. It's also deeply about Donald Trump. Because no matter how personal her message may seem, it creates a ripple effect, and that ripple has landed straight on Donald's public image. Right now, Donald Trump is in the middle of some of the biggest battles of his life. He's juggling court cases, fighting legal charges, preparing for political rallies, and trying to make another run for the White House. Cameras follow him everywhere. Every word he says makes headlines. Every move he makes is judged. But while he deals with all this chaos, his wife Melania has chosen a very different path. She's gone quiet again. She's staying far from the spotlight. And when she does speak, her words sound cold, distant, and completely removed from her husband's world. That doesn't look good, because in politics, appearances matter a lot. When a political figure is running for office or facing pressure, people look at their family, especially their partner. A united couple sends a message of strength and stability. It makes voters feel like the person they're voting for is grounded, solid, trustworthy. But a couple that looks disconnected, That makes people worry. Melania's silence used to work in Donald's favor. It made her seem private, elegant, and classy. While he made bold claims or fought with reporters, she stood beside him quietly, like a calm in the storm. But now, that silence no longer feels peaceful. It feels like distance. She isn't showing up to campaign events. She isn't smiling at his side. She isn't doing interviews, defending him, or speaking about his goals. And the one time she did speak, it sounded like she was pulling away, not leaning in. People are starting to talk. Is Melania still supporting him? Or is she stepping back to protect herself from the legal mess, from the media heat, or even from something personal? Some are even asking, if Donald wins again, will Melania even want to return to the White House? That question is bigger than it seems. If the First Lady refuses to take on the role again, or even seems uninterested in returning, it sends a very loud message. It tells the world that something's wrong behind the scenes, and voters notice that. Voters care about the full picture. They don't just look at the candidate, they look at the partner, the family, the energy around them. Right now, that energy feels cold. If Melania doesn't stand with him in public, doesn't speak up in his support, doesn't play the role of the First Lady like before, it could damage Donald's image. Because whether people admit it or not, First Ladies do matter in politics. They represent grace, family values, calmness in crisis. They shape how the leader is seen. And Melania, she just shook that entire role. By staying away, she made herself louder than ever. By speaking once and then going silent again, she created more questions than answers. And by not standing beside Donald, she's made people wonder if she still stands with him at all. For a man who relies so much on image, loyalty, and strength, this silence might be the most dangerous sound. Melania's future and the road ahead. So what now? Melania Trump has finally reminded the world that she can speak. She may not say much, but when she does, it's powerful. Just a few short words, and suddenly she becomes the center of attention again. Not for what she wears, not for standing next to Donald, but for what she says, and even more, for what she chooses not to say. But what does this moment mean for her future? Will this be the beginning of something bigger? Will she finally open up and share the full story the people have been guessing at for years? Will she sit down for a tell-all interview? Write a book that explains what life behind those golden Trump doors was really like? Or will she step back once again, this time even farther away? Maybe this wasn't the start of a new chapter, but the end of one. There are people close to Melania who say she's ready to live life on her terms now. She's no longer tied to the role of the perfect First Lady, no more photo ops, no more standing quietly behind someone else's spotlight. No more pretending, just freedom. Freedom to choose her path. Freedom to focus on her son, Barron. Freedom to live where she wants, do what she wants, and stay away from the drama. Others believe she's being smart, making a plan behind the scenes. She's not reacting to headlines anymore. She's creating them, quietly, calmly, and completely in control. She's not letting the media tell her story. She's holding the pen herself. And honestly, that's exactly what makes her so interesting. Melania has always been one step ahead, watching, waiting, and choosing the exact right moment to speak or not speak at all. So will she stay silent forever? That seems unlikely. Because now the world is watching more closely than ever, and she knows it. If she speaks again, it could be for something big, something final, a decision, a message, a reveal. And if she doesn't, well, even her silence will be studied, judged, talked about. Because now Melania isn't just a former First Lady, she's a mystery, a question mark, a symbol of power wrapped in silence. Some say she's preparing a public comeback, but on her terms, not as Donald's wife, not as the First Lady, but as Melania, strong, private, and in control. Others say she might vanish again, this time for good. No more press, no more politics, just peace. Either way, one thing is absolutely clear: Melania Trump has changed the game. She has shown that you don't need to shout to be heard, that silence can be louder than any speech, That when you speak rarely, your words become even more powerful. She has left the world guessing, watching, wondering. What will she do next? Where will she go? Will she speak again? Or leave everyone in the dark forever? Whatever path she chooses, people won't forget this moment. Because Melania Trump isn't just walking away, she's walking into something entirely her own. And this time, she's leading the story, not following it. Melania Trump has always been a mystery. She stood beside power, but never chased it. She watched the spotlight, but never stepped fully into it. Now, at 55, she's done something she rarely does. She broke the silence. It wasn't loud, it wasn't messy, but it was clear. Her message reminded the world that silence is never empty. Sometimes, it's full of meaning. And when someone like Melania finally speaks, there's always a reason. She didn't explain herself. She didn't offer more. She said what she said and vanished again. That's what makes this so powerful and so scary. Because it leaves us asking, what's going on behind the scenes? Is she planning something? Is this the beginning of the end or the start of something new? No one knows for sure. But one thing is certain. Melania Trump isn't just the quiet first lady anymore. She's the woman who waited, watched, and finally said what needed to be said. And now, the world is left to figure out what comes next. So keep your eyes open, because when Melania speaks again, it might just change everything. Change everything. Change everything.